At around 2 feet below average, Lake Springfield desperately needs snow and rain this winter. But there's steps you can take now to save yourself a little money next summer.
Also, you hear about it almost every day now. Do you really know what the fiscal cliff is?
We break it down, what it means for you. WAND News at 5 in HD starts now.
You're watching your local news on WAND at 5. First in HD.
The images, they're hard to look at. A car smashed around a tree in a small town park. It happened back in April. 2 women and a baby killed.
Today, the driver of this car was in Christian County Court for an emotional hearing, and our Sarah Sidery was there. Sarah.
Sean and Stacy, as you can imagine, it was an emotional day in court for everybody, but especially for 24-year-old Katie McKenna, the driver and the only survivor of the crash that killed her sister, her infant son, and her best friend. McKenna was previously charged with 3 counts of reckless homicide. Today she was expected to enter a guilty plea, but changed her mind in court, saying she had second thoughts and asked for a jury trial. Pana police say McKenna was driving this car when she crashed in Kitchell Park back in April. Her sister, 23-year-old Shelly McKenna, friend, 18-year-old Melissa Keller, and son, 3-month-old Kenneth McKenna, all died as a result of the crash. I caught up with both the McKennas and the Kellers outside the courthouse today, and both say it's been a struggle.
I don't know what happened when they got in the car, honestly. But if they did anything wrong, they paid it that day with their life.
This is a pretty sad day for me and my family, but I hope once this gets over with and the hatefulness will all stop. And that's all I have to say.
McKenna was emotional in court today. There were a lot of tears and sobbing before the judge. But if she would have accepted that guilty plea, she would have faced a maximum sentence of 10 years. Now that decision will be in the hands of a jury, which the judge mentioned if they do find her guilty, she could face a higher sentence. McKenna's pretrial date is set for January 22nd. Live in the studio, Sarah Sidery, WAND News.
Also in tonight's Crime Tracker, a Springfield man will spend 90 years in prison for trying to murder a police officer. 28-year-old Jesus Ramirez was convicted on attempted murder charges. He was fleeing from police in January 2011 when he got out of his car and attempted to fire a handgun at a Sangamon County deputy and a Springfield police officer. Ramirez was also found guilty of armed violence and cocaine possession. He'll have to serve at least 85% of the 90-year sentence.
A deal with Peoria County could mean Macon County juvenile criminals traveling further from home. We've told you a deal between Macon and Sangamon counties ended because the Sangamon County Jail can no longer afford to house juvenile offenders from outside that county. So Macon County is searching for a new agreement. Macon County's Justice Committee approved a resolution to send juveniles to Peoria County. Now that deal has to be approved by both full county boards before it moves forward.
Now, first weather from Storm Center 17, home of the exclusive O'Brien Auto Park Urbana Storm Runner.
Well, it's always nice when we reach Friday, we reach the end of another work and school week. But when it's the last day of November, one day away from December, we can top out with highs near 60 degrees. It calls for a great end to the work and school week. Now, right now, we still do have clear skies outside, although a couple clouds slowly starting to move their way in our direction. Right now, this is a view of our Stahls Furniture and Mount Pulaski Tower Cam looking over the Soy City of Decatur. And right now that sun has set, our temperature is slowly starting to fall back into the lower 50s, even upper 40s right now in Champaign and Paris. What we can expect tonight, we'll continue to see an increase in the clouds. Also, patchy fog developing after midnight. That will continue tomorrow morning. We'll start the weekend cloudy, a nice warm-up in sight, and we do have the chance for some showers. I'll break it down in your full forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
After months of drought, it's a familiar problem on the Mississippi River. If water levels continue to drop, the nation's main inland waterway could become impassable for barges, just as the harvest heads to market. Right now, the greatest concern is a 180-mile stretch of the river between St. Louis and Cairo, Illinois. The lack of rain has squeezed the channel from its normal width of 1,000 feet to just a few hundred feet.
Well, the drought conditions through the state continue to improve. Here's a look at the latest drought monitor map. You can see all of central Illinois is either abnormally dry or out of the drought altogether. But that is not relieving water problems everywhere. Our Casey Lund reports Lake Springfield still 2 feet below average for the first time for this time of year.
It's quiet this time of year at the Lake Springfield Marina, but now is when people renew their slips here. Sales manager Scott Tucker says lake levels could affect their numbers.
We still got a little ways to go. I think under our docks we've still got about 4 to 5 foot, in some areas.
This is the lowest the lake's been all year. Tucker remembers the last time the marina was hurt by the drought more than a decade ago.
Really not something that we want to see again, so doing everything we can to conserve the water and make sure that the water quality is good out here is it really benefits not only us but the entire lake.
Hope and pray for precipitation and use water wisely.
Ted Meckes is the new water division director for CWLP. Springfield is still in Stage 3 water restrictions.
This is our time of our average lake levels are normally lower this time of year. We do have the winter and spring range, which we normally count on to fill up the lake, and we're hoping that continues.
A continuing drought could mean the city uses its emergency water supply plan,
which is damming up the Sangamon River and backing the water up to our South Fork pumps to pump.
That backed up water would be pumped from the Sangamon River into Lake Springfield through this big pipe. It's a worst-case scenario the city wants to avoid next summer, because the more CWLP utilizes this pump house on the other side of East Lake Shore Drive, the more the utility will have to pass those costs to you.
The driving force behind those alternatives is a drought.
His advice to avoid drying up the lake and your cash flow: conserve water, even during winter.
Leaky toilets, leaky faucets. Stop the leaks. Run a full dishwasher load, run a full laundry load.
In Springfield, Casey Lund, WAND News.
CWLP recently updated its Facebook page with tips to save water year-round. We've added a link at WANDTV.com. Look under Site Watch. More details on the levels on Lake Decatur. Today, the city says the lake's about 83% full. Has been that way for the past 2 weeks. It's even currently 3/4 of a foot above the normal winter pool. Stage 1 water restrictions are still in place for now. At its meeting Monday night, the Decatur City Council will get another update on the lake levels.
Well, it seems we hear the phrase fiscal cliff every day lately, but do you really know what it is? Hampton Pearson takes a look at what's at stake.
The U.S. is barreling towards the so-called fiscal cliff. By design and some bad luck, a series of unrelated laws will either expire or be triggered on January 1st. All told, about $500 billion in tax increases and $200 billion in spending cuts automatically go into effect if lawmakers don't act. Included in the massive tax increase, the Bush-era tax cuts expire. Last year's 2% rollback of the payroll tax ends, and popular business tax breaks will disappear.
Despite the claims that the president supports a balanced approach, the Democrats have yet to get serious about real spending cuts.
On the spending side, last year's failed budget deal leads to automatic cuts of $27 billion each in defense and non-defense spending, and another $12 billion in cuts to Medicare. But too much austerity too soon, economists say, could put the country in a recession. With unemployment topping 9%, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, using those same estimates,
196.
White House economic advisors predict consumer spending could decrease by $200 million. There's still time for Congress and the president to stop short of the fiscal cliff.
The American people are watching what we do. Middle-class families, folks who are working hard to get into the middle class, they're watching what we do right now.
The challenge, finding the right combination of taxes and spending cuts that solves the deficit problem without harming an already fragile economy. In Washington, I'm Hampton Pearson, CNBC Business News.
On the verge of that fiscal cliff, President Obama wants the middle class to speak up. Today, the president urging voters to contact members of Congress, demand of compromise. But right now, there's no deal in sight. The president insists Republicans agree to raising taxes on the wealthiest 2% of Americans. But Republicans say taxing the rich more will hurt small business owners and lead to more firings.
Increasing tax rates draws money away from our economy that needs to be invested in our economy to put the American people back to work.
I need you to remind members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, to not get bogged down in a bunch of partisan bickering.
Congress scheduled to leave for the holiday break in just 2 weeks, and without a deal, income taxes will go up for almost every American.
Well, still to come, Radar's friends join us. See if you can give a happy home to a pet on this holiday.
Always looking forward to that. Plus a winner coming forward with this week's big Powerball ticket.
I heard it was a winner from Dearborn, and then when I literally, by the time I walked in the door, my mom was on the phone. She said, he won.